Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the Women in Medicine Summit, a transformational CME conference happening September 13th to 14th at the Drake Hotel in Chicago. Engage in leadership programming, learn negotiation skills, receive on-site coaching and mentoring, and see who will win this year's I Stand With Her awards. This year, we're excited to offer unique programming that includes a special session on how using improv comedy can bring fun back into medicine. We also have financial sessions tailored to help you navigate the complexities of personal and professional finances. Discover ways to advance into leadership roles, combat burnout, and either reignite your love for your current role or find joy in a new career path. Don't forget our Friday evening gala, a highlight this year you definitely won't want to miss. Register now at womeninmedicinesummit.org and be part of the movement that is shaping the future of healthcare. Join us to network, learn, and celebrate the power of women in medicine.
Welcome to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. We explore with our guests how you can move from surviving to thriving as a physician. We know that when you connect with your values and authenticity, you can live a life that is fulfilling and not only good for you, but drives the necessary transformation in healthcare to take better care of our physicians, which means better care for our patients. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about who I was and what I needed from a partner. It was just kind of another life thing. Okay, you go to undergrad, you go to medical school, you get married. It's like checking boxes, which people that go to medical school tend to be very good at checking boxes. So I felt like marriage was kind of one of those things. Hello, my lovelies. I'm so glad you're listening today. I'd like to start with a few updates about Revitalize. I am so happy that I had the opportunity to hang out with my co-founder, Dr. Linda Lawrence, and her daughter, Allie. Allie is our marketing director and behind the scenes creative that we work with. So all the emails, our website, all the cool social media that happens is thanks to Allie. And by the way, if you're a physician that wants to make a website or some help with your own social media, I'd be happy to share Allie's information with you because she's amazing and makes our lives a lot simpler. So shout out to Allie. We love you. I hope you have an Allie in your life. And if you don't, we'd love to introduce you to Allie. Anyway, so it was super fun having everyone together at my house. And what we were doing was thinking about what is Revitalize? Why did we found this company? Why do we have this podcast? And the funny part is, Linda and I have worked for numerous organizations, nonprofits, and we've actually worked together to help another organization create their vision and mission statement. So we're very familiar with the strategic planning process. But we had failed to do some of the steps ourselves. So we remedied that and we did those steps with Revitalize. Read our vision statement. And for those of you who may not be familiar with a vision statement, the purpose behind a vision statement is to actually put your company out of business, which sounds super weird. But essentially, if we complete this vision, then we wouldn't really need Revitalize. So unfortunately, I think we're going to need Revitalize for a while because it is projected that on the current pace, which, by the way, current being pre-COVID, to reach gender equity in the United States was estimated to take more than 180 years. So more than our lifetimes, more than our daughters' lifetimes away, which is just abysmal. That sounds negative. Let's focus on something positive. Our Revitalize is that women physicians are empowered to innovate and influence medicine to value authenticity, respect, and work-life harmony. So essentially, we want Revitalize to inspire you, to inspire the change that will happen in medicine, to create a culture in which people can show up and be who they are at work. Not toxic, that we don't want that, but show up to be your genuine, whole self at work. That's what authenticity means. And we want women and all people to be respected at work. And we want medicine to value work-life harmony. Once those three things happen, we think we're worked out of a job. And I'm super excited to be on this journey to get myself worked out of this job. And you are really important in helping us transform the culture of medicine, that everyone can show up, be their authentic selves, be respected, and have work-life harmony. That sounds so cool. And I really think it's possible. And I think it's going to be more possible with the work that we're going to be doing at Revitalize. So that's our vision statement. Now let's talk about our mission statement. So the mission statement is what you do and how you do it. So what is Revitalize? I get this question a lot. What do you do at Revitalize? All right, here it is. Revitalize connects women physicians and allies through innovative, value-based coaching methods that align trust, support, accountability, and skill development to ignite the courage and clarity necessary to take bold actions to create change and thrive. Ooh, I just have goosebumps. I'm just so excited about the mission that we have at Revitalize. So through innovative value-based coaching methods, we align trust, support, accountability, and skill development to ignite the courage and clarity necessary to take bold actions, which create change so you can thrive. This feels so good. So Linda and I are super excited and we want your feedback. So we are changing things up a little bit. Our next Rev Room, which is the last Tuesday of each month, this time will be at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, 11 Central. We are going to change that to a coffee chat. Bring your coffee, whatever bev you'd like to bring at 9 in the morning Pacific, and circle up with us. And we want your feedback on our vision, our mission, what we're doing at Revitalize, and how we can support you. That's why we wake up every morning. You know, you're top of my mind when I wake up. How do I make the culture of medicine better for women and vis-a-vis everyone? Whew, that's exciting. All right, so happy Valentine's Day to all the lovers out there, and special happy Valentine's Day to anybody that's not in love right now, to anybody that's feeling heartbroken, that's going through a tough time. Especially happy Valentine's Day to you. It is not lost on me that this episode is finding you on Valentine's Day. That's the day we released it. Or maybe you're listening to it a few days later, a few weeks later, who knows when. But there are reminders all the time, whether it's Valentine's Day or not, about either we're in love, we're out of love, we're in a relationship, or we're out of a relationship, or we're in between. So there's reminders out there all the time. Recently, I had a friend who's also a physician share with me that she's going to be going through divorce. And it reminded me of my own experience with divorce. And I want to share that with all of you today. And I hope it's helpful to you or a friend. Maybe you can forward this to somebody, because divorce is a very common experience. You know, the statistics are about 50% of Americans will go through a divorce. So certainly if you don't go through it, you know many people in your life that have or are going through this process. Also, interestingly enough, both myself and my co-founder, Dr. Linda Lawrence, has also gone through a divorce. And what I think is interesting about our experience is it was during formative times in our medical education. So my divorce happened during medical school and her divorce happened during residency. And this podcast is for physicians. Largely our audience are women physicians. So I wanted to unpack what are some of the issues that may be unique to women physicians when it comes to relationships, marriage, life partnering, divorce. These obviously are my opinions, and I am not a relationship expert by any means. Certainly by the end of listening to this podcast, you're going to say, yeah, Andrea has totally messed up on some pretty huge scales when it comes to relationships. But I, for better or for worse, am a pretty open book. And I think being vulnerable with all of you is very important. And we need more of this vulnerability in medicine. Because, man, the crossover rate between perfectionists and doctors is really high. That's coming from yours truly, a recovering perfectionist. So there are a couple of lessons that came out of my divorce that I want to just start with. The first one is you can go through an incredibly shitty period of your life and have amazing moments of joy. And you are allowed to have joy in the middle, beginning, during, whatever part of the shitty thing you're going through. I actually wish I had remembered that more when some other shitty things happened in my life. I wish I had channeled that a little bit more on deployment and also during COVID. And thinking back on the divorce, it really did teach me that you can go through something very hard and have joy. And I've heard this from other people that have gone through difficult things in their lives. I hear this from people that talk about a family member slowly dying and going through that period, that it sucks. It really, really sucks. And my God, if you could collect all the tears that you cry going through a divorce or a terminal illness with a family member, I can't imagine what it actually equals. But you can also have these moments of unparalleled joy. So I want to just lean into that a little bit and tell you that while the divorce was just fucking like vile and raw at times, there were so many really cool and happy moments in retrospect. And even during, like, I actually had the people that are listening to this that know me from that period of time know that I had a lot of fun. Let's say that. So let me give you an example. Because it was such a hard time and so painful, I think one of my strengths generally, I guess there's been a couple of exceptions in my life, but when I'm really doing a hard thing well, to pull from Glennon Doyle, we can do hard things. When I'm doing a hard thing well, I actually do open up to somebody. And this is a bit of a funny story. So it doesn't start out funny. It starts off like really sad and hard. So I got married when I was 22 years old. And just saying that, like, I'm just like, whoa, that was so crazy. Wow, I was so young. I didn't know anything. And that links to part of what I think is important for doctors. So when I look back on 22-year-old Andrea, holy crap, she really did not know so many things, and painfully so many things about herself. But how does that relate to being a doctor? part of becoming a doctor is so all-encompassing, and people that have gone through it, you understand what I mean. So you've got to have these great grades in undergrad. You've got to do well on the MCAT. Then if you're so lucky, you get into medical school. I don't know about all of you, but honestly, probably most weeks I spent 60 hours between studying and all the stuff we had to do, right? And on some rotations, the hours were longer than that. It didn't leave a lot of space to explore and really get to know myself. And the way that translated for me was relationships were an afterthought. And what I mean by that is I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about who I was and what I needed from a partner. It was just kind of another life thing, okay, you go to undergrad, you go to medical school, you get married. It's like checking boxes, which people that go to medical school tend to be very good at checking boxes. So I felt like marriage was kind of one of those things. And then I also didn't understand how much culture impacted my worldview, that I was from the Midwest. It was very common. There are many examples from my family and from my friend group that people got married around age 22. And I know many people that are still married to people from when they were 22, and they're very happy. So it obviously works out for some, but I also think there's definitely some potential pitfalls. And being on the trajectory that I was and how much time I was spending preparing to go to medical school, I didn't have the bandwidth to show up to a relationship as a whole person, to be a good partner. I didn't know what to ask for. And so then when you get a little bit farther down the road and you're in it, you're like, crap. Like, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and I didn't know how to communicate to my partner what I needed. And now there's so much water under this bridge that I don't think we can create a bridge that's going to work going forward. So that was one piece of it for me. And I think listening to other doctors talk about this is something that we fall into the trap. So, maybe you forward this to somebody in your life that's younger, thinking about going to medical school. And then I think you layer on being a woman, and that many of us get overt and not so overt messages to be pleasing. And that also influenced a lot of how I acted in that relationship and in staying in that relationship to not create waves, which is funny because now I create a lot of waves wherever I go. So that's one piece that I want people to think about is, do you have the time and space in your life to get to know yourself, to know what you need and what you want in a partner? The second thing I want to hit on is I think I was probably codependent looking back on that phase of my life. And I think that might be something that other physicians may have a tendency to be, because part of the reason we go to medical school, and maybe more so for women, is we're attracted to the caretaking part of being a doctor, that I take care of people. And looking back on that relationship, I definitely had an unhealthy level of taking care of my ex-husband. And what I realized when it was time for us to get the divorce was he could not become the partner that I needed with me, because I had created an environment that was fueled by codependency. I didn't have that word in my vocabulary. That because of that codependency, it was never going to work. He couldn't self-actualize with me because I wouldn't allow him to fail. I would keep picking up the pieces. And that really sucked to realize that part of this relationship imploding was totally me and totally the actions that I took, a lot inadvertently, but it didn't change the end state that this was over. So I think I forgot to tell the funny story that I meant to about vulnerability, and I'm kind of backpedaling now, but I want to tell you guys this story. So when things hit the fan with this relationship, we got married when I was 22, and about a month or two after being married, I got an email from someone that shared a piece of information about my ex-husband that changed everything. And I'm not going to go into the details about what it was. It doesn't really matter anymore. It doesn't matter to you. In case you're just like, was it infidelity? No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was something else. So it's not always, I think that's important. It's not always about cheating. Cheating is a very common reason that marriages end. But for my marriage, it was something else. And that piece of information came at me while I was at work. I was a research assistant the summer before medical school. And it was incredibly shocking, surprising, and hurtful. And it was one of those, like I can still remember sitting at the desk at work with other people around me as I'm reading this email. And I think back, God, I can envision that young 22-year-old that's so excited to go to medical school and doing this research assistant job at her medical school that she'll be starting in the fall, and reading this piece of information that, like, I literally felt like my heart was being sucked out of my body. But it was so weird because I was at work around other people as I'm reading this, and I would not allow myself to react, right? I did not want anybody to know that something bad was happening. And maybe that's a good example of the ability for us to compartmentalize and to numb. I totally was doing that in that moment. So I came home and I told my ex-husband, hey, this piece of information was shared with me. I know about it now, and I'm not okay with this. This is like a really big deal. And there was a response that could happen that maybe would have allowed us to stay married. And, now in retrospect, I'm so thankful that he just was incredibly honest. And his response was, okay, and I'm not going to do the thing that would fix this. In your eyes, I'm not going to fix it. And I didn't know what to do with that because I just assumed that he would try to fix it once I explained how important it was to me. But he said he wasn't going to. So we've been married for, maybe at this point, maybe it was a couple of months. And based on his response, in my heart, I knew it was over. Like, it was done. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Are you a physician mom with school-aged children feeling utterly exhausted? My friend Dr. Sheeta Shaffi invites you to take a little time this summer to join her in a small, intimate group for meaningful conversations. Dr. Shaffi is an emergency physician, coach, and mom to 8-year-old twins. She understands firsthand what you're going through. This isn't a pizza party or a yoga class. You'll meet for 2 one-hour sessions twice a month starting in July to help you move out of exhaustion, let go of mom guilt, and live a life you're not only proud of, but can truly enjoy. Connect with her on LinkedIn or Instagram at Sheeta Shaffi to learn more. Sheeta is spelled Shideh, and Shaffi is spelled Shafie. You can also check the show notes for a link so you can connect with her there as well. I didn't do anything for almost a year. And this is, where, our lives are so interesting, how different things transpire. So why didn't I do anything for a year? Well, part of it was I was in medical school. So this horrible thing happens over the summer. I have some time, the most time that I would have to process it. But then medical school starts, and anybody who's been in medical school or done anything intense in their life, the work of being in school engulfed me. And I threw myself into that because I wanted that more than anything else. And I loved it. My God, we talk about how hard medical school is, and I'm not discounting that or anyone's experience, but looking back on it, I loved it. I absolutely loved learning about the human body and the science, and I loved my classmates. I was so inspired by all of them, how smart they were, how interesting they were. So, a lot of people maybe think high school or undergrad were their best years. I don't think medical school was my best years, maybe. I'm pretty happy now, but I really loved medical school. And it was a great distraction. Oh my God, there's just so much to learn, and so many friendships were forming that I was completely distracted. And that other life thing that happened, well, it happened before getting married. I had committed to being in the Navy. So this is where the story takes an interesting turn, because now we start to see different pieces of my life colliding. So the summer after my first year of medical school, I had to go to officer development school, which those of you that are in the Navy, you know what that is. And it's in Newport, Rhode Island. And I packed my bags and I left for Newport. And it was an incredibly busy time. Oh my God, so busy. And in some ways, it's how would I have had the time to process something when you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning and you're running around and doing all the crazy stuff they make you do. But while I was surrounded by people, including having a roommate, I also felt weirdly alone there. I was around people and we were busy, but I also had, at least compared to being home, a lot of mental space to process things. And I processed that I was going to have to get a divorce. I didn't know how. I was very concerned about it, but I was that's what's going to have to happen when I get home. And so the first person that I told that I thought I needed a divorce, or I was really contemplating it, was one of my classmates from medical school. And this is the funny story that I'm finally getting to. And this classmate, my God, I miss her so much. We've lost touch. And Mikhail, if you're out there, I love you so much. And I'm sending you positive vibes. And I really hope this podcast finds you. I'm tearing up just thinking about you because I miss you so much. Anyway, Mikhail was super cool because she was a bit older than us. She didn't go straight through. And so she was from New York City. She had this interesting life that was so different than most of us from Iowa, because most of our med school class, I think 70% were from Iowa. So I was really fascinated just by her various experiences, and that she was a writer and had done all this cool stuff. And I just got this sense being around her that because she was a bit older, lived in New York City, had done all these interesting things, that if I was going to tell a secret to, or something that I was ashamed of, not even a secret, something I was ashamed of, she was a safe person to do it. That if she hadn't made a mistake of this level, she at least knew somebody that had. So I felt okay telling her this thing I was so ashamed of. And I said, I think everybody I tell the story of my relationship to thinks it's so amazing. Oh, you married your high school sweetheart who was a foreign exchange student, and you guys get to gallivant off to Europe together. That's the most romantic story that I've ever heard. Like, people would say things like that. And of course, they would say it based on the way I'm presenting it, right? So she heard the whole story, and she says, Andrea, there's assholes from there too. And so what she was telling me is like, what had happened was shitty. And like, I could just own that. Like, I don't think my ex-husband's an asshole, but I needed somebody to say that I could feel in that moment like I was upset with him and that what happened was shitty. And so I thank her so much for that. And some of you listening know Mikhail. She just had this like funny New York, not taking any crap way of cutting through things. And it was so wonderful in that moment. And I think back to Mikhail a lot. So what I want you to take away from this is you can have joy during really shitty times. And the joy I had going through the divorce was having these moments of raw vulnerability with people like Mikhail, and there's a few other people that probably will listen to this that know who you are, that you were so kind to me and you saw how broken I was and how much pain I was in, and you were just so lovely. And I'm forever thankful for that. And we had fun. I mean, we had parties. We went out and did things. We traveled. We had adventures. And so while I was going through this really hard thing, I had so much fun. And so if you're listening to this and maybe you're getting a divorce, maybe you're in a breakup, maybe you're in a relationship that you're not really sure what's going to happen and you don't know what to do next, I love you. I want you to know that. I absolutely love you, and I'm sending you good vibes. And when you have an opportunity for joy, whether that's going out to dinner with a friend, taking a trip, going on a walk, going on whatever brings you joy, fully lean into those moments. Oh my God, they're the life rafts of that ocean that you're in. I would sometimes feel bad. I would like leave something that I just like, I'd find myself laughing. And I've heard people say this when you're going through grief, like the first time you laugh, you're like, oh my God, like, is it okay to be laughing? So if you're going through a divorce or a separation or a hard season of your relationship, please find those moments that you can laugh and be silly and have fun. And it doesn't mean like the pain isn't going to be there. Trust me, it will be there. But I'm so thankful that the universe and the world gives us these openings, because then you start, when you have those moments, you start to kind of feel like there's going to be a way out. And not that you even really know what it's going to be, but you start to get a glimpse of, I will laugh again. I'm laughing right now, and I will laugh again. There's so much more that I want to say on this topic, but one of my New Year resolutions or habits, we don't do resolutions at Revitalize, we try to make new habits, is to keep the pod a little bit shorter. So what I'd really like to hear from you is your relationship pearls for doctors. Send us an email at revitalizemm, which stands for mastermind.info@gmail.com. You can tweet at us. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can direct message me. You can email me personally. But I'd love to hear what you think are the unique issues that affect doctors in finding love, staying in love, and quite frankly, when you need to leave. Like why sometimes we stay when we should go. So it's been really fun and a little hard and super crazy vulnerable recording this podcast. So if you're feeling brokenhearted this Valentine's Day or any day, know that you're not alone. Thanks for listening to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Revitalize Women Physician Circle, founded by Dr. Linda Lawrence and Dr. Andrea Austin, your host. You can connect with us on our website at www.peoplealwayshcc.com/revitalize. You can tweet at us at Revitalize Women, and please connect with us on LinkedIn at Revitalize Women Physician Circle. We look forward to helping you go from surviving to thriving. This podcast represents our opinions and the opinions of our guests. It does not represent any entity that we work for or with, including the military, the government, or any other institution. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Hi, it's Dr. Risa E. Lewis, dropping in to tell you about a book that Dr. Adara Landry and I wrote. It's called Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact. It's a business self-help book coming in 2024 by HarperCollins. Pre-order now. Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact, wherever you buy your books.